Did you know that the FIA itself has published data that reveals that the ARM26 is losing several seconds per lap? And that the problem is not only in the engine nor only in the aerodynamics but in something much deeper? Because what happened on the third day of testing at the Bahrain International Circuit was not just a bad day of testing for Aston Martin F1 team. It was the moment when technical reality collided head-on with winter expectations. The official numbers exposed straight-line losses due to energy clipping, instability in fast corners, and a degradation that does not fit with a project that aspired to make an immediate qualitative leap. And the most shocking thing is this: when you analyze sector by sector, the ARM26 does not lose in an isolated point, it loses in all of them. Straight, slow curve, fast curve, transition. That's not fine-tuning pending. That is a concept that is still not working as it should. The third day of testing at the Bahrain International Circuit was not simply another day of filming for Aston Martin F1 team. It was the moment when the narrative built throughout the winter began to collide head-on with the reality of the data. Because until that moment, everything revolved around expectations, prudent statements, internal messages of progress. But when the FIA consolidates figures for speed, energy efficiency, and GPS comparison, there is no longer room for optimistic interpretations. What happened that day was a complete technical presentation of the ARM26 in front of the rest of the grid. From the first long runs in the morning, the car's behavior left worrying signs. It was not a question of an isolated lap or a specific error by the pilot. The problem was repetitive: difficulty maintaining stability in fast curves, progressive loss of performance when the asphalt temperature exceeded 35 degrees, and an obvious drop in the final phase of the straights due to lack of sustained electrical deployment. This premature clipping not only compromises top speed, it completely alters the overtaking and defense strategy in the race, especially on a circuit like Sakhir where traction and energy management are essential. While teams like McLaren showed consistency in their long simulations and Ferrari achieved stability in the second and third stint, the ARM26 seemed to have an extremely narrow operating window. When the balance was slightly aggressive on the front axle, the car gained some rotation, but it compromised the rear axle until it became unpredictable. When security was sought at the back, the car lost corner entry and punished the front tires. This lack of structural balance is one of the clearest signs that the concept is not yet closed. The aggregate data from the third day revealed something even more disturbing. The car does not lose exclusively in a specific sector, it loses in a distributed way. In the first sector, where braking stability and traction are key, the ARM26 showed a deficit when exiting slow corners. In the second sector, dominated by aerodynamic support at medium speed, the difference increased in transition phases. And in the third sector, with the main straight as the protagonist, the energy deficit was completely exposed. When a car loses in all types of curves and also on a straight line, the problem stops being one of fine-tuning and becomes conceptual. Internally, Day 3 forced a change in focus on the testing program. Instead of focusing on validating aggressive configurations or qualifying simulations, the team had to dedicate a good part of the afternoon to comparative setup tests, trying to identify whether the origin of the deficit was in the engine map, in the hybrid management, or in the aerodynamic balance. That, in a test of only 3 days, is a clear sign that you are not where you expected to be. The most significant thing is that the publication of official data confirmed what was already visually intuited. The gap with respect to the front group is not isolated tenths, it is seconds in sustained rhythm. And in Formula 1, recovering a second is complex. Recovering several requires a profound reorientation of development. The third day in Bahrain did not end the season, but it did redefine the immediate expectations of the project. This is the real starting point of ARM26. Not the one imagined in the presentations, but the one set by the stopwatches and telemetry. And from here the real story begins. How a team that aspired to consolidate itself among the best must now fight first to understand its own car before thinking about closing the gap with the head of the pack. What makes Day 3 at the Bahrain International Circuit a turning point is not just the difference in the stopwatch, but what that difference reveals about the entire concept of the ARM26. Because in Formula 1 several seconds are not lost by chance. They are lost when the car fails to connect its 3 fundamental pillars: aerodynamics, energy efficiency, and mechanical platform. And that is exactly what the published data revealed for Aston Martin F1 team. During the second half of the day, as the teams ran comparable medium fuel programs and race simulation runs, the ARM26 behavior began to show a repeating pattern: accelerated thermal degradation at the rear axle and a progressive loss of effective load as the tank was lightened. This is key because normally a car improves its balance when it reduces weight. In the case of the ARM26, the opposite happened. The more the pace was forced, the more the stability deteriorated. That points directly to a problem of correlation between wind tunnel, simulator, and real track. The technical reading is worrying. If the car needs an extremely specific configuration to operate within a minimum performance window, it means that any external variation in temperature, wind, dirt on the track can throw it completely out of balance. And that in a long calendar like 2025 is an enormous risk. We are not talking about an isolated circuit. We are talking about a conceptual base that must adapt to layouts such as the urban layout of Melbourne, the long straights of Shanghai, or the demanding Suzuka. And if in Bahrain, which is a well-known circuit, the car is already suffering, the uncertainty grows. Another point that became evident on this third day was the ARM26 inability to generate confidence in medium and high-speed corners. In the sector comparisons, it can be seen that it loses time not only at the braking point or at the exit, but at the most critical moment. Sustained cornering where stable aerodynamic load makes the difference. That's where teams like McLaren and Mercedes managed to maintain higher minimum speeds without compromising the tire. Aston Martin, on the other hand, showed constant micro-corrections, a clear sign that the aerodynamic flow is not offering the expected stability. And when the aerodynamic deficit is added to the energy problem on the straight, the result is devastating in terms of race pace. Because the driver cannot attack in a curve or defend in a straight line. He is trapped in no man's land. That is the harshest conclusion of Act 2 of this story. The ARM26 is not failing in one specific area, it is misaligned as a whole. Internally, this third day forced us to prioritize understanding over ambition. The team had to rethink its immediate development approach, focusing on understanding the interplay between the aerodynamic platform and hybrid delivery before introducing aggressive updates. This completely changes the initial scenario of the season. Instead of thinking about closing tents to fight for podiums, the objective becomes to stabilize the car so as not to be trapped in the middle zone. The third day of Bahrain was not a final sentence, but it was a revelation. The release of the data made it clear that the challenge is neither small nor superficial. It is structural. And when the problem is structural, the solution does not come in a single update. It requires time, deep understanding, and brave technical decisions. Day 3 at the Bahrain International Circuit not only exposed technical weaknesses, completely redefined Aston Martin F1 team's competitive starting point for the start of the season. Because it's one thing to discover that you're 2 or 3 tenths behind in pure pace. It is quite another to assume, with official data on the table, that the gap is structural and that it affects each phase of performance. Curve entry, sustained support, traction, and top speed. This cannot be corrected with a simple wing adjustment or a more aggressive engine map. This requires a reorientation of development. The immediate consequence of what we saw in Bahrain is strategic. Aston Martin will need to decide whether to invest resources in a rapid evolution of the current concept or start rethinking key areas before the schedule gets too far ahead. The problem is time. The 2025 season is already underway, and the calendar doesn't wait. After Bahrain, circuits with very different characteristics will arrive. Urban layouts where mechanical stability is critical, high-load tracks where the aerodynamic flow must be solid, and high-speed scenarios where energy efficiency is once again decisive. If the ARM26 already showed fragility in a known and technically balanced circuit like Sakhir, adaptation to more extreme environments generates uncertainty. The third day of testing at the Bahrain International Circuit left no room for optimistic interpretations. The published data confirmed that Aston Martin F1 team's ARM26 is not simply tweaking details. It is facing a structural challenge. The difference on the straight due to energetic clipping, the instability in fast corners, and the difficulty in maintaining pace in long runs draw a car that has not yet closed the circle between concept, execution, and real performance on the track. The most compelling thing was not the absolute lap time, but the repetitive pattern of the deficit. Losing in all sectors, in different types of curve, and also in energy efficiency, reveals that the problem is not isolated. It's global. And when a car loses in a distributed way, the solution does not come with a single update. It demands deep understanding, precise technical correlation, and firm strategic decisions in the first few races. Leave me in the comments what you think about all this.